473 and Pharaoh. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it. Let no one challenge. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and post it. Let the world know. Studio Galaxy is around. Galaxy in Confero, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Though you shall be drum, tell others, like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know. Studio Galaxy is a road. Chinese and lucky like we. Iran and North Korea wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know. Studio Galaxy. Studio Galaxy in Confero, you know. 473 standing strong is ours, you know. The medium an opportunity for you. Contribution, let them know. Democracy, its islands is alive and well. Ask you questions, sing and beat you drum. Make you suggestions, encourage them on to walk the straight and narrow in the land. National spiritual issues, agricultural, environmental, and trending to subject matter. We fear none, we back down. Freedom of speech is enshrined in the land. God, we freedom, jealous and day. Cuba runs and Chinese and lucky like it. Rhine and North Korea wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Galaxy equalizer ready. We freedom of speech is make use of it. Let no one tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know. Studio Galaxy is around. Galaxy in Confero, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Though you shall beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know. Studio Galaxy is a road. God, we freedom, jealous and vain. Cuba, Russians and Chinese. democracy is around. And Pharaoh know, sportsman standing strong is yours, you know. The medium and opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Democracy, I love it. New suggestions encourage. an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Though you shall beat the drum, tell others, like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is a road. God, we freedom, jealous and gay in Cuba, Russians and Chinese and lucky like we, Rand and North Korea.
Good morning to everybody, both at home, in the diaspora, and worldwide. I'm so used to hearing Mr. Pierre's voice in the morning. I look forward to it. My voice, in terms of introduction, is a little bit flat compared to his. This morning we have a wonderful show lined up for you. It's a beautiful day for the farmers. It's raining on our roof. I can hear the galvanize making its noise that it makes with the rain. So the farmers are going to be pleased. They got the water going. And we have lined up for you a special guest, one of my favorite person, not only in the Caribbean, but in the world. We have Roel Edwards with us this morning. Roel and I are going to have a nice conversation about the Caricom industrial policy and how it's going to benefit Grenada. We will focus not on the wider policy, but on the policy part that deals with agriculture, agri-business, and how we're going to benefit. So, Roel, good morning. Hope you're well, and I hope you're on because I can't see you. The technician has the computer facing him.
Hi, Josh. Good morning, and good morning to the listeners, not just in Grenada, but across the region. Good morning to the listeners. Yes, I can see you. I've also seen myself. So, if you are able to hear me, then I can confirm that we're well aligned this morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but some adjustment is being made with the volume by the technician. So, but I'm hearing you faint. Hopefully, by the time you finish, I'll hear you clear.
Sounds good.
How are you this morning, Roel?
Quite good. Feels as though it's a weekday, Monday to Friday. This is the third engagement for the morning on a Saturday, but I'm grateful. I got up and I had some good spiced tea and some salad and stuff. So I'm good. I'm grateful.
Yeah, so you knew you were going to be on the spice aisle this morning. So, in terms of our discussion this morning, Roel, maybe we can start off. When we talk about agriculture, we normally talk about crops and this and that. Sometimes we forget the policy part of agriculture. So maybe we can start by you just explaining to the nation what is Caricom industrial policy. What is that? It sounds nice.
Right. So what I would probably do is to just take 2 minutes and go back into the history, Joshua, a little bit as to where we're at and where we've gotten to at this point. And I'm not a staff of the Caricom Secretariat, so I'm the consultant working with the Caricom Secretariat to support the development of what is called the Caricom Industrial Policy and Strategy. And that really feeds on from the work I did on the 25% by 2025, which is the document that member states are using. It's now 25 by 2030, which was to reduce the region's food input bill by 25% by 2025, and they've now changed that to 2030. So I was the main architect behind the scene that helped put this together. So in 1975, Caricom, which is a grouping of countries in the region, established what was called the Caricom Enterprise Fund. That Caricom Enterprise Fund was designed to support companies that had the intention to go regional to receive the funding and the support necessary for that to happen. Between 1975 and 1995, not a single firm in Caricom took advantage of the Caricom Enterprise Fund. And so they disbanded the idea altogether. And in 1996, they made the first attempt to develop an industrial policy. That policy was focused only on manufacturing and did not go very far. In 2012, a second attempt was made at developing an industrial policy. Again, that did not go very far. So in 2022, the CARICOM heads of government designated Suriname as the lead country in CARICOM to support the work of the development of an industrial policy. And in 2023, Suriname prepared a discussion paper that looked at what are the sectors that can contribute to growth and development of the region. And in November of last year, I was asked to support the process. And so I became the lead consultant working with CARICOM to develop the industrial policy and strategy. The main intention of the document is how can government, or the intention of the industrial policy is how can government use its policies to, one, encourage, support, and coordinate sectors and industries that they believe can drive growth and development across the region. So in the context of Grenada, how can the government of Grenada use its intervention to create policies and regulation that encourage, support, facilitate private sector development and investment in specific sectors that has the intention to, one, create firms and services that can provide goods that are internationally competitive and at the same time contribute towards employment and growth and development. So in a nutshell, that is what is meant by the industrial policy. It is included in a term you would hear called the Revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. So the Revised Treaty of Chaguaramas is the sort of rule book that established CARICOM, established the countries as a single grouping. And in that document, it says that we should develop an industrial policy to help coordinate at a regional level growth, development, and private sector profitability. So that is what the policy is about that I've been working on for the last few months across the region.
Thank you very much, Earl, for that background. It's wonderful. I can probably just say if you can, add some of the sectors that the policy include. But before you do that, I have to say, you've been tremendously busy at the highest intellectual level. So, I'm sure the whole CARICOM countries or islands will benefit from your work. So, what are some of the areas the policy is looking at?
Yeah. So before I jump into some of the areas, Josh, so far we've been doing a series of consultations across the region, and I'm extremely pleased for the opportunity that you've created here to sort of share with the Grenadian population and public what is taking place. I mean, we've had Antigua and Barbuda, and they've experienced, expressed tremendous joy that at least somebody from a small island developing state is leading the work in that respect. Typically is the big countries that do so. Barbados, we've had consultations with Jamaica, with Guyana, with St. Vincent, with St. Kitts, with Dominica. So across the length and breadth of the region, the feedback has been phenomenal. People have made suggestions as to how to strengthen the document, how to improve the policy to make sure that it's implementable and doesn't end up to be a pretty document on a shelf. So in terms of the priority sectors, we call them industrial ecosystems. And why industrial ecosystems? So we look at the industry and we say, who are all the players that are involved in the industry? Rather than just catering generally to just the big companies or the big firms, you want to think of everybody. So if we think of agriculture, the farmers, the research and extension service providers, the input suppliers, the financial systems in terms of the banks that provide funding, the government, the supermarkets, the hotels, those are all included as part of the agriculture industrial ecosystem, because you want to make sure that whatever intervention you develop, it moves the entire sector or the entire industry forward, rather than just selecting a big firm or a medium-sized firm to be the winner. So it goes beyond picking winners. Also, what we've done in terms of identifying the industrial ecosystems or the industrial sectors were to analyze the structure of the economy of each country and the structure of the economy across the region as a whole, and identify what are the commonalities, what are the common industries or sectors that each country has, where the development plans exist, but that also can contribute towards growth and development. So we've looked at the contribution of agriculture, the contribution of manufacturing, tourism, etc., to identify the sectors. So the 12 industrial ecosystems, and I'm just going to read them out for you, and I can always share this document. I can always share this document if required. One, agri-food, fisheries, and processing. So we've called agri-food, fisheries, and processing. Yeah.
Before you go on to number 2, could you just explain what food and
I lost you, Josh. So you want to ask the question over again?
Yeah. I was just saying, just explain a little what agribusiness is, so that although it may be a term familiar, even I, 2 weeks ago, I said, what is this agri thing? Tell us what it is. It sounds to me, from what you've said already, it's a holistic approach, but just explain for everyone.
Okay, so when we say agri-food, fisheries, and processing, it covers every business that operates in the food space. Whether the food comes from land, it comes from the ocean, or you get plants and animals. Those are covered there in their raw state as well as processed state. And then every business that provides a service. So, for example, if I have an extension business, or I have I'm an input supplier. As the input supplier, I'm running a agribusiness. Or if I am a consulting firm that writes project proposals specific to agriculture, then I am an agribusiness. I provide a service. Or veterinary services. Or you are involved in, let's say, doing research and development specific to new varieties or new products. Those would fall under agribusiness. So when we think of the agri-food, processing, and fisheries ecosystem, we're thinking of producers, but also service providers. Yes?
Okay, wonderful. I think that will help the listeners. So it certainly helps me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the thing is, we don't call them a businessman or businesswoman, but a farmer or a fisher folk. They are businesses, so they're part of the agribusiness ecosystem. You are doing a business, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the intention is to help transition the minds of our people to move from just seeing themselves as a farmer or as a fisher folk, but to also see themselves as a business person. So the first industrial ecosystem is agribusiness or agri-food, processing, and fisheries as one, construction as a second one, cultural and creative industries 3, digitalization 4, education and human resource development 5. The 6th one is energy, yes, especially renewable energy. 7th, health and well-being. 8, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. 9, mobility and transportation. 10, non-food manufacturing. So we've separated non-food manufacturing from processing. Yes, because they require a different level of attention. The 11th one, interestingly here, is research, development, and innovation. And then the 12th is tourism. Yes. So there are other things that countries will be doing that will not necessarily fall within any of these 12 industrial ecosystems that they would continue to have to provide. But when we think of regional development or national development, able to promote industrial transformation, to leapfrog growth and development, we sort of identify that these 12 if done well and done properly, can really transform any society into moving closer to the first world status. You hear me?
It sounds as though we're having a little. No, we were having just a little in the chat, so we weren't hearing Ellie. Well, we weren't hearing you.
Yeah. Josh, can you hear me?
Hmm?
Just repeat.
Yeah,
So
I'm hearing you now.
okay, so those are the 12 in industrial ecosystem. If we are to, let's say, drill down a little bit into agri-food fisheries and the processing industrial ecosystem, or the agribusiness industrial ecosystem, each industry has 3 big ticket transformative items that has been recommended. So for example, boosting agri MSMEs technology uptake. That if we're talking about transformation, we have to find a way that our small, medium, and micro-sized enterprises operating in the agricultural
Let's take
sector.
a break, John.
All right.
Well, let's take 5 minutes to get out the little snitches and niches in the system.
Okay, no problem.
Democracy in its idols is alive. Well, ask you questions, sing and beat you drum. Make you suggestions, encourage them on to walk the straight and narrow in the land. Politics, religion, and economic issue, regional, international, spiritual issues, too. Agricultural, environmental, and trending to subject matter. We fear way back down. Free the species in the land. God be freedom, jealous and they in Cuba. Russians and Chinese and lucky like we. Right now, North Korea wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Galaxy Equalizer ready like Freddy. And Studio Galaxy 473 in Confero. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it. Let no one challenge. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around. Studio Galaxy in Confero. Hope you know 4/7 song is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is a road. Freedom, jealous and in Cuba, Russians and Chinese and lucky like we. Rand and North Korea wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean, we Studio Galaxy, they and me. Go your shell, beat your drum, tell others.
All right, we back on again. We've had a few little glitches, technical little thing, but as Mr. Pierre often say, we're the new kid on the block, so we're learning and we're growing, and but you know we're trying. So you have to give us a bly. Well, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Well,
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, we're going to try again, Rel. I mean, it was so interesting listening to you, and always is. But I've just found out we have technical challenge, but we'll go ahead and see how we can make it. I had technical challenge yesterday. I drove from almost St. George's to Cafe in third gear. So this little glitch here is nothing. All
Yeah,
right,
no, it
so
happened. It
just
happened.
continue where you were.
No, I was saying that if we drill down a little further into the, uh, for example, the fisheries and agro-processing industrial ecosystem on some of these specific interventions, then it gives us a sense as to what we're thinking, what we are promoting, or what the industrial policy is promoting. So, for example, boosting agri MSMEs technology uptake, meaning that the the small, micro, and medium-sized enterprises that operate within the agriculture space. One of the objectives of the industrial policy is to boost technology uptake. How will that be achieved? The recommendation here is to establish what is called an agri-food smart specialization platform, yeah, where you can have the transfer of these technology across the region that is available. So how do we develop more mobile wallets to transfer payments? How do we develop platforms to do crop forecasting and to link demand and supply? But also upskilling and reskilling, meaning that the agriculture workforce, both in the private sector and in the public sector, how the recommendation here is that, hey, our extension service providers, etc., have to be able to provide digital solutions or provide support to farmers over a digital platform. So you can be out in the field, you snap the picture of the pest and disease that you're having, and you send that picture or you upload it into a platform, and you get a response as to what the disease or infestation is and how to manage that, upscaling that, as well as stimulating the adoption of agricultural technologies. So precision monitoring of soil fertility, making sure that the use of test kits and hydrometers and thermometers and stensometers to measure the alkalinity in the soil, the pH level of the soil, the water content of the soil, that all those things are done for smart monitoring and nutrition. Gone are the days, Josh, where a farmer simply applies NPK 3 times a year because that's how it used to happen. It needs to be done in line with the level of fertility of the soil based on the crop type that he is growing, etc. But also to move into some of the smarter technologies for growing crops and rearing animals. Yeah. So those are some of the things included. Also, looking at what is called improving the functionality of agri-food corridors. What do I mean by that? So let's take the OECS as an example. Look at the OECS, and the OECS on a percentage basis are the largest importers of food in the entire Caricom on a percentage basis, the OECS, right? To look at what are the things that can be grown in the OECS successfully, not competing with each of the other islands, and to develop specialized production for some of those items and create a corridor within the OECS, for example, to move food. So we know that the deficit for sweet potatoes might be in St. Lucia. So one country is growing sweet potatoes that is then distributed across the region, including St. Lucia. Or we're good at soursop, so we become the grower of soursop across the region and trade that. Or St. Vincent in the case of Dashin. So what are the things that the OECS wants to specialize in? Or Grenada, let me limit it to Grenada. Grenada wants to specialize in and to develop those.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that are included there.
That's wonderful, Rel. I was particularly interested in the technology transfer because historically, one of the challenges that the Caribbean has faced is that of an extraction economy. So we've been encouraged just to grow the raw material and send it abroad. What many of our academics have highlighted is there isn't the technology transfer being done with developing countries like Grenada, and it's deliberate. We deliberately do not get the technology transfer because it's the technology transfer that's going to help propel us forward and help us improve our production in terms of crops, or even selecting the right species that has a high value and gives us a high return. So that the whole technology transfer, it is just listening to you. It really is songs transformation, and I could see the extension officer in the field with the little computer or iPad, whatever it is, and I could see the interaction taking place between the extension officer, their colleagues, and the farmer. That is going to be a real boost in terms of agriculture if that can be achieved.
Yeah, Josh, I even push the envelope even further and can be even more pragmatic. That it really sometimes goes beyond just the transfer, and so if you permit me just to explain a little further, goes beyond just the transfer of technology, but is the actual development
Yeah.
of our homegrown solutions. So, for example, in the case of Grenada, and I will pick on two issues. Let's take soursop and let's take nutmeg, right? Forget cocoa, because Trinidad, I think, is a good example of the cocoa research station in terms of cocoa development, where Trinidad and University of West Indies, the cocoa development company, they have the patent, they have the strain for the Trinitario and some of the other cocoa, the fine flavor cocoa, and they have that they use to develop. But look at us here in Grenada. And what the policy, this industrial policy, can address is the aspect of research, development, and innovation. Yes? And so we have soursop, we have nutmeg. And very often you find that what's missing is where are our scientists? Where are our scientists in nutmeg and soursop? Where are they? Yeah? That can do the level of research that is necessary on new germplasms, on new planting material, on breathing, on the post-harvest management. I'm talking about going beyond just a general agronomist or an extension officer, but where are the specialists in those areas? What are the research and development that we're doing with new packaging, new product formulation? So I was in Guyana a few weeks ago, and they have soursop sea moss gel, mango sea moss gel, turmeric sea moss gel, where they've taken the sea moss and they've begun to infuse it with all different kinds of items to come up with different blends. The industrial policy says here what? We need to create the framework that allows for countries to, one, have a structured approach to research, transfer that research to developing a item or product or service, and then to continually innovate. That is, however, going to be backed by the intellectual property regime, meaning that if I, as an inventor, come up with an idea, does the regulation allow me to patent and to protect that idea? And if the regulation allows that, then what is then the system to allow me to move from a patented idea to a commercial idea? I may have the research idea, but I don't have the financial resources to mass produce. It means I can grant the right for mass production that allows me to then benefit of the royalties. So without having the infrastructure backbone to move the research and development into commercialization, then you find that we're going to have a challenge. So, our people are based all around the world, and we have scientists that are Grenadian born all around the world. It requires a homegrown infrastructure to say, hey, the government plus the private sector, we are going to fund research. And those refunds could be in the form of grants, could be in the form of PPPs, could be in the form of incentives, could be in the form of tax breaks, where you don't have to provide the actual cash, but they say to a firm, that if you undertake this particular research, then you are going to be reimbursed if it's successful. So you have recoverable grants, or you have these things where we say we're going to make $1 million out of a $1 billion budget. Every year, $1 million out of a $1 billion budget, every year available for research and development. It means that we can see a lot of these solutions coming forward. We have software programmers in Grenada that can compete around the world, who can do the software programming. We may have to buy the hardware, but you can assemble the equipment in Grenada. Yeah, once you have the software and you write the code, you can host it on a local server, you can host it in the cloud. So our size really should not matter in terms of whether we can have the technology available. It really requires the policy regime to encourage the adoption of the technology. Kirani was on top of the world and still is amongst the most recognized 400-meter athlete in terms of decorated medals. He's from a small island of 100,000. He beat, LaShawn going and coming from the US, 300 million. So it says the same thing in technology, that if we have the policy regime in place to encourage investment, then we can have the kind of a transfer into the sector. Then we keep doing the same thing over and over. We have a little seminar here, we have a little training here, we do some plans distribution here. No, what the industrial policy is calling for is a regime that encourage sustained investment and development in critical areas where you have the ability to be competitive. Over?
Yeah, we still have little glitches, but based on what you were sharing, that sounds like a real opportunity for Grenada in terms of some of the products that it's dealing with. We've never really been able to maximize the benefits of our nutmegs. And to a lesser extent, our cocoa. Now, one of the things that was running through my mind whilst I was listening to you was, would there be space or opportunities where you can develop the concept, you can develop the test products, etc., but the volume and the scale of manufacturing that's needed, then seek a partner in the region to do the manufacturing. Would that be something that may be possible?
Yeah, Josh, you've hit the nail on the head. So the industrial policy, the Caricom industrial policy, is built on the principle of what is called functional cooperation and production integration. And I would break the both of them down. So in terms of functional cooperation, that is where member states works together, both at the public sector level and the private sector level, and cooperating for the advancement of the region's development, functional cooperation. And then the principle of production integration is where production is not limited to one central space, but that the production can be held wherever it is most advantageous to do so. And the easy example is between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So the United States, in most respects, controls the intellectual property. Silicon Valley, they do a lot of the research and development. But Mexico and Canada, because of the availability of raw materials and etc., does some of the production. And so you have the movement of items across the border between the US and Mexico and Canada back and forth. And sometimes a particular item may move 70 times, like a car, before it is actually finally made. So what you find happening is that you get the volume to allow movement, and so freight and transport becomes easy. There is now a transportation link that develops. The industrial policy recognizes that and says, hey, if the idea resides in Grenada, Grenada can develop the idea. Grenada can control the intellectual property, can maintain ownership of the idea, like Apple in Silicon Valley. But the actual production may take place, let's say, in Trinidad, that has a vastly lower cost of production due to its cost of energy, right? So you own it, it's produced in Trinidad, then distributed across the region and across the world. Yeah. So there is something called weightless goods. Weightless goods, where it's no longer a justification to say because we're small, we can't compete. We might be small, we may not be able to compete in the volume, but we can compete in the quality and in the knowledge. So we develop a knowledge economy, a knowledge sector, which which has its own benefits in terms of high paying jobs, skilled jobs, etc., and can now attract young people into an agricultural space because it's beyond fork and spade. So only last week, for example, my daughter and I, we built 3 flower beds, and my job was just to help supervise and spend the money, meaning to go buy the board, etc. She was the one that did the measurement and cutting with the saw. She was the one that used the drill to nail the boards together. She's the one that decide how she's going to plant those items. Why? Because in the school that she goes, the use of technology as part of agriculture training is highly encouraged. So they have their greenhouses, they have their computers, they have their welding machine, they have the drills that they're using, etc. So that the agriculture course is not seen for the dunce or for the poor, but the agriculture course is seen for the entrepreneur that wants to make money. So that there is a space in the industrial policy for member states to develop their own development plan that takes advantage of production integration and functional cooperation. We can come up with the idea, do all the research, we can patent it, and then we can produce it in any other member state. But it requires a level of maturity, because it means that all
that sounds
it requires a level of maturity where our policymakers have to move beyond thinking about, oh, I'm not providing jobs to my people. Yes, you're providing jobs. May not be the final manufacturing jobs, but you're providing jobs in the development. You're providing jobs in the research. You're providing jobs in distribution. So it requires a level of maturity, but certainly can redound to significant benefits for the region and for Grenada.
okay. That sounds wonderful, Ruel. But I was a little worried listening to, because it sounded like your daughter had done a coup d'état on you. So be very careful. Next thing you know, she's gonna have you doing all the little errands for her. But Ruel, on a serious note, one of the areas I look at in Grenada, and permit me to be a little bit specific, I look at Pearls Airport, and I look at the whole area, and it looks as though it's been neglected. I know there is a center being built there, but in the industrial policy, is there space for, like, they used to have these industrial free zone or tax free zone or something, where you could manufacture, and for it's a tax free zone. Is there anything that in terms of the policy?
Yeah, so the policy has what is called policy instruments, and each of the policy instrument, it's like a menu, it's like a buffet menu of policy instruments that governments and policymakers can draw from to utilize to help implement their own localized industrial policy. Included in there is what is called special economic zones. Included in the menu of options are special economic zones or tax-free zones.
Yeah.
Governments would have to choose where in a country they want to set up a special economic zone, and if they want to set up special economic zones. But yes, there is in the policy recommendation for the use of special economic zones to help create the environment for businesses to thrive, to grow, and develop. Yeah. So it's included. How a government may choose to
Yeah.
operationalize that is going to be up to them, but there is recommendation to draw on that because special economic zones have benefits. There are pitfalls, but there are benefits. So, for
Yeah.
example, one of the benefit can be the area of bankruptcy. That our laws, if you go bankrupt, sometimes you get blacklisted, etc. But in a special economic zone, in the area of research and development, it can provide a space for failure that a business can go into the zone, and if they fail, that is not a red stain or a strike. They fail, they move on to something else, and they're given a clean slate to continue to experiment. Yes, the development of the light bulb was after 9,999 attempts, and on the 10,000th try it was successful. So it has to can provide the space for failure in an orderly way where someone's does not lose their life and all their assets and all their resources and goes bankrupt and stuff because they've attempted to develop a business idea. So a special economic zone can do that. It can also provide for
Mhm.
specialized financing so that the cost and the access to finance is more affordable for someone operating in a special economic zone because it's outward looking. So yes, the policy covers the ability to draw on special economic zone to drive development.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah. That airport has always been in my mind that we should not lose the opportunity to develop this area in terms of small scale industrialization, secondary processing, and giving people the space and the opportunity to create and develop, but also giving businesses that already has gone through the process and their ideas are clear and firm and they're ready to take off. And maybe it's because I'm a St. Andrews boy, but I still dream of the old airport being rehabilitated and being used for light aircraft and maybe cargo planes, etc., to take the cargo out of Grenada. So, when I drive past there, all of that flashes through my mind. When I drive on the airport strip, I'm often saddened that, we using it as not what it was meant for in terms of aeroplanes. We're doing drag racing and some people go in and bring the car and race themselves there. But I still believe that whole area, can be turned into an industrial free zone. And I guess I long for the fact, that Uncle Gary is not wrong, because I think if he was wrong, we might have a good chance of getting an economic free zone with the whole area, because we have the sea. The sea is a bit rough. And the airport, I know people have often said, oh, well, it's not long enough. But them Japanese building airport in the sea these days. Yet God knows what the Chinese would do. So, the decisions we make 40 years ago is not necessarily still kind of the most appropriate decision today. So that's my kind of little, hope and aspirations for that area. But in terms of the agribusiness, we've talked a little bit about creating the infrastructure, the environment for it. But could we, as you often say, drill down a little bit more in terms of things that we talk about on this program and say, for example, one of the things that we're very famous for is flowers and winning international recognition for our flowers. But, you know, um, we don't really get any real benefit at home. So, for example, the industrial policy, how could it kind of encourage an area? How, in terms of if we wanted to make flowers into an industrial business, and the background technical staff tell me we have about 2 or 3 minutes. So,
Yeah, yeah. So Josh, if I can answer that quickly, the industrial policy does not prescribe to a member state what the subsector should be, but it provides a framework
uh-huh.
that member states would have to draw from. One of the framework that it provides is what is called the implementation structure, where you have drawn from different ministries and from the private sector stakeholders to form a national policy coordination committee. And that's where the identification of sectors can come. So it's broad based, it's non political, it's expected to transcend election cycles. So, such a committee that is broad based, transcends electoral cycles, is not apolitical, but really draws on the expertise. People, whether they agree with you politically or not, draws on the expertise that are available, can allow you to identify what are the sectors that the country can benefit from, that can be transformational to the country, and then what are the policy instruments that the government can consider. Develop hand in glove, government and private sector and stakeholders agreeing on those policies to move a sector forward. So in the case of flower, the ornamental flowers, if this is a subsector that Grenada identifies as having the potential to both better integrate into the hospitality sector, utilizing the brand of winning so many goals at the Chelsea Flower Show, and the ability to export across the region, then they would look at what is required. How do we make this mainstream? How do we export our flowers? How do we use that brand to further develop Grenada? And the Industrial Policy Coordination Committee at the national level can work with government and stakeholders to kind of move that forward. But each country would have to decide the structure of the national committees. What the policy does is to provide a framework so that the country, it has to be bottom driven, so that the country would decide how and what it wants to pursue, and when it wants to pursue those within the context of a regional industrial policy.
Well, thank you so much for that. You explained that so well and so simple, because quite often we have big ideas, but the implementation of those big ideas are not always there. But you actually gave us a framework with an area that's relevant for us in Grenada, flowers. We talk about it all the time. Mr. Pierre is a big advocate of flowers for the women. But this gives us an idea in terms of how we move forward in reality. As we often said, in terms of this program, we try to raise awareness. We try to get people involved in terms of the discussion. And I have to say I was inspired listening to you this morning. I was a little disappointed with our technical stuff, but that's how it is. We will fix it and we'll get better. But, having you on the program is just such a wonderful opportunity for not only myself but all the listeners, because you inspire us to greater things, and I want to wish you well in what you're doing. I wish you were based in Grenada, but I know the world wants you, and and I know you will come back regular. Keep informing us. So thank you so much. The last word is yours.
No, Josh, thank you for that, and the opportunity to share. In terms of measurement, I just wanted to respond to one question raised. The monitoring, evaluation, and reporting on the 25 by 30 now, and the Caricom Industrial Development Plan has to be data driven. So, specific if we're talking about food and food security, the way to really measure progress is twofold. One, what has been the reduction in our food import, both in terms of value and quantity, and what has been the increase in the production of our locally grown foods. And if you're able to move those two together, it doesn't really speak to access. It doesn't speak to affordability. Yes, it doesn't speak to whether or not people can buy what's available. But that is one metric. to begin to say, all right, we are moving along the continuum of improving our food security. That is one matrix in terms of the statistics. But to save and accept to say that I think we have a good opportunity to really take some bold decisions as a people of the region and as Grenadians. I remain available to contribute and to share in the discussion and in really designing some of what I call these interventions that can be transformative, that the idea is a monopoly in anybody's head. I think the idea resides across many people, and if we are able to pull all of these ideas together, then I think Grenada can certainly be much further along in our quest to really feeding our people, making foods a lot more affordable, and to make sure that food is healthy on the plates of the people.
Thank you for that. So I don't know if you have any other closing remark, but the program is about to shut us out. So you have a
No,
few seconds if you want to say anything.
no, apart from wishing you a wonderful day and to all the listeners, no, I'm fine.
All right. Thank you so much, Ruel.
Beat your drum, tell others, like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around.